Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
All right, buckle up because I'm about to say something so controversial, so absolutely insane, that half of you are going to click off this video within the first 30 seconds. But I need you to hear me out because I'm going to make a case that nobody else has the guts to make. The Phillies should explore trading Bryce Harper. Not because he's a bad player, not because we don't like him, but because it might be the only way to actually fix this broken roster and build something that can win a championship. I know that sounds completely crazy. I know Bryce is the face of the franchise. But if you can get past the emotion for just a few minutes and look at this objectively, you'll see there's actually a legitimate argument here. Let me start by saying what this isn't. This isn't me hating on Bryce Harper. This isn't me saying he's washed or that he doesn't care or that he's not a good player. Bryce is a very good player who's given us some incredible moments, but very good isn't the same as transcendent. Very good doesn't justify $27 million per year through age 39. And very good doesn't win you championships when you're surrounded by other expensive veterans who are all declining simultaneously with zero organizational depth to supplement them. So the question isn't whether Bryce is good, it's whether having that much money locked up in one aging player is the best use of resources for a team trying to win a World Series. The contract is the elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss honestly. 13 years, $330 million. We're only 3 years into it, which means we have 10 more years of this. 10 more years of paying Bryce Harper $27 million annually, watching him decline from age 32 to age 39 with absolutely zero flexibility to pivot if it's not working. That's not a championship blueprint. That's organizational handcuffs. And the scary part is we're already seeing signs of decline. The batting average has been mediocre. The power numbers are good, but not elite. The injuries are piling up. And he's a first baseman now, the least valuable defensive position in baseball because his outfield defense became too much of a liability. Here's the thing that people don't want to accept. Bryce Harper at age 32 is not worth $27 million per year. Not when you factor in the complete package. He's a good hitter playing the easiest position on the field. That's it. He's not providing defensive value. He's not stealing bases. He's not an on-base machine anymore. He's a solid middle-of-the-order bat who hits for decent power and strikes out too much. That's a $15 to $18 million player in today's market, not a $27 million player. The difference between what we're paying him and what he's actually worth is the entire problem, and it compounds every year as he ages and declines further. Now, here's where it gets interesting. What if there's a team desperate enough, dumb enough, or delusional enough to take on that contract? What if some organization with an impatient owner looks at Bryce Harper and thinks, that's our missing piece? It's happened before. Bad teams make bad decisions all the time. The Angels exist specifically to make these kinds of mistakes. Maybe the Rangers want to make a splash. Maybe the Cubs are desperate to be relevant again. The point is, if there's a team willing to take on most or all of that contract, you have to at least explore what you could get back. Because if you could get significant value in return while shedding that massive financial commitment, you could completely remake this roster. Imagine what we could do with $27 million in annual payroll relief. We could sign multiple impact players instead of having it all tied up in one guy. We could address the bullpen properly for the first time in years. We could add starting pitching depth. We could get younger, more athletic outfielders who can actually play defense. We could build a deep, balanced roster instead of being top-heavy with expensive veterans and replacement-level depth. That's what the Dodgers do. That's what the Braves do. They spread their money around intelligently instead of putting all their eggs in one increasingly expensive basket. The return would have to be massive, obviously. We're talking multiple elite prospects, major league-ready talent, maybe an established player or two. But here's the thing. Bryce Harper still has significant perceived value around the league. He's a former MVP. He's a recognizable name. He's got that star power that sells tickets and jerseys. Some team would convince themselves they're one superstar away and would give up real assets to get him. And if we could flip Bryce into 3 or 4 players who are younger, cheaper, and collectively more valuable, that's a win, even if it feels like a loss emotionally. Think about the clubhouse dynamics too. And I know this is going to upset people, but it needs to be said. Is Bryce Harper's presence actually helping this team win, or is it creating a dynamic where everything revolves around him? We built this entire roster around keeping Bryce happy. We signed his friends. We constructed the lineup to protect him. We moved him to first base so he wouldn't have to play defense. At what point does that become a problem? At what point does having one untouchable superstar who gets whatever he wants create a culture that's more about comfort than championship hunger? The age curve is terrifying when you really look at it. Bryce is 32 right now. History tells us that players decline significantly in their mid-30s, especially power hitters. By 35, he's probably going to be a shadow of his current self. By 37, he might be borderline unplayable, and we're stuck paying him through age 39. That's 7 more years of watching this decline happen in slow motion, while that money could be going toward players who are actually in their primes. The last 5 years of this contract are going to be absolutely brutal, and there's nothing we can do about it unless we trade him now while he still has value. The positional flexibility we'd gain is another underrated benefit. Right now we're playing Bryce at first base because that's the only place we can hide his defense. If we trade him, suddenly we can put literally anyone there. We can call up a prospect. We can sign a cheap veteran. We can move another player over. First base is the easiest position to fill in baseball. You don't need to spend $27 million there. You especially don't need to spend $27 million there when you're maxed out on payroll and have holes everywhere else. It's just bad resource allocation, plain and simple. The comparison to other mega contracts is instructive here. Look at Albert Pujols with the Angels. Look at Miguel Cabrera with the Tigers. Look at any huge contract given to a player in his 30s. They all end badly. Every single one. The player declines. The team gets stuck, and everyone wishes they'd pulled the trigger earlier when there was still trade value. We're walking down that same path with our eyes wide open, and instead of learning from history, we're just hoping somehow it'll be different this time. Spoiler alert, it won't be different. Bryce Harper at age 37 is going to be a massive problem, and we're going to wish we'd traded him back in 2025 when we still could have gotten something significant in return. And the no-trade clause is obviously the major obstacle here. Bryce has full control over where he goes if he goes anywhere, so this only works if there's a team he'd actually want to play for. But here's the thing. If we're not winning, if we're stuck in this mediocre cycle of making the playoffs and losing early, does Bryce really want to spend the rest of his prime here? Maybe there's a contender, maybe the Dodgers or someone where he'd actually have a better chance to win a ring. Maybe we could sell it as doing right by him, giving him a chance to compete for championships with a better constructed roster. It's a long shot, but it's not impossible. The PR disaster would be unprecedented. I'm not naive about that. Trading Bryce Harper would be the most controversial move in Phillies history. Fans would riot. The media would kill us. It would be absolute chaos. But you know what's worse than short-term chaos? Long-term mediocrity? You know what's worse than angry fans for a few months? Wasting an entire decade being good, but not great, competitive, but not champions, because we were too scared to make the tough call. Great organizations aren't afraid of backlash. They make decisions based on what's best for winning, not what's most popular. Here's the reality check nobody wants to hear. This core, with Bryce Harper as the centerpiece, has failed. We've had multiple chances. We've made the playoffs multiple times. We went to the World Series, and we came up short every time. At some point, you have to accept that the current construction isn't good enough and make dramatic changes. Trading Harper would be the most dramatic change possible, but it might also be the necessary change. It would signal that we're willing to do whatever it takes to build a winner, even if it means trading the face of the franchise. That's the kind of bold move that separates championship organizations from everyone else. I'm not saying this is definitely what we should do. I'm not even saying it's the most likely scenario. What I'm saying is that it should be on the table. It should be something Dombrowski is exploring. Because if there's a trade out there that makes us significantly better, that gives us the pieces to actually win a championship, you have to at least consider it. You can't let emotion and sentimentality override baseball logic. And the baseball logic here is pretty clear. We're paying way too much money for declining production at a non-premium position while our roster has massive holes we can't fill because we don't have the financial flexibility. Trading Harper could solve multiple problems at once, and refusing to even consider it because he's popular is organizational malpractice. It's time to at least have the conversation, even if the answer ends up being no. Because right now we're not even asking the question, and that's almost worse than anything else.